Hello, everyone, and welcome. In a world where we are absolutely flooded with information, how do we figure out what's actually true? This is a huge question, and it's right at the heart of your Anglais Monde contemporain curriculum. So today we're going to dive deep into how we get informed and what our responsibilities really are in this digital age. Let's get right into it.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to tackle this in 5 steps. First, we'll look at the big problem, this growing crisis of trust in the news. Then, we'll see how the media is trying to fix it, and we'll ask if their solution is really working. From there, we'll equip ourselves with a solid method for analysis, and we'll wrap up by talking about our shared responsibility in all of this.
I want to start with this quote from the head of the BBC. It sets up a really powerful metaphor, doesn't it? Fake news is the poison, and trustworthy, impartial news is the antidote. It sounds so simple, so clear, but is it really? This is the big idea we're going to put under the microscope today.
Now, just so you know exactly where this fits in your studies, because this is really important, we are operating within Theme 3, Relational Monde, and we're zooming in on Axis 3, Regard sur le monde. This lesson is all about that specific part of your program, S'informer sur le monde aujourd'hui, which is designed to make you think critically about news, disinformation, and the role we all play, journalists and citizens alike. So, let's start with the problem itself. And wow, it is a big one. According to a major report from the Reuters Institute, global trust in the news is hovering at just 40%. Just stop and think about that for a second. That means 6 out of every 10 people around the world look at the news with a healthy dose of skepticism or maybe even outright distrust. This isn't just a small issue in one country, it's a massive global crisis of belief.
But here's where it gets more interesting. That 40% average doesn't tell the whole story. The trust crisis looks very different depending on where you are. In a country like Finland, trust is actually quite high, up at 67%. But then you look at places like Hungary or Greece, and it absolutely plummets to just 22%. This shows us that trust in the media is deeply connected to a country's unique political and cultural environment.
Okay, so this all brings us to the core challenge for today, our guiding question. In this incredibly noisy world, with so much information and so little trust, what's the path forward? What can big media organizations do to be reliable guides? And, maybe even more importantly, what critical skills do we need to develop to find our way through it all? That's what we're here to figure out.
So, if public trust is in freefall, what are the big media players doing about it? Let's take a look at their proposed solution, their antidote, if you will. We're going to use one of the most famous broadcasters in the world, the BBC, as our main case study.
You have to understand that, at its core, the BBC sees itself as more than just a news channel. Its official public purpose, written right into its charter, says its job is to provide impartial news to help people understand and engage with the world. The keywords there are impartial and understand. They're positioning themselves as a public service, something essential for a healthy democracy.
And their biggest, most visible answer to the trust crisis is this, BBC Verify. They launched it in 2023, and it's not just a couple of people in a back room. It's a whole specialist team of journalists, data experts, and people who specialize in OSIT. That stands for Open Source Intelligence. Basically, they use publicly available data, like satellite images and social media posts, to forensically investigate claims. The BBC is marketing this as transparency in action, their main weapon in the fight against fake news.
But this brings us to what might be the most important question in your entire AMC course. It's a question every critical thinker has to ask. Who verifies the verifiers, right? If an institution sets itself up as the ultimate source of truth, then we have an absolute responsibility to examine their work just as critically.
And this is where we see the central tension. On the left, you have the official goals of BBC Verify, checking facts, debunking fake videos, all that good stuff. But on the right, you have a summary of criticisms from an investigative article by a publication called Unheard. They talk about a record of failure, of bias by omission, and they point out the very high cost, a salary bill of over £3 million. This is the conflict we need to dig in. So let's look at a concrete example that Unheard brings up. During some riots in the UK, BBC Verify reported on an attack, framing it as white men attacking men of Asian heritage. Sounds like a clear-cut racist incident. But later, the police clarified that the victims were actually Eastern European. In other words, they were also white. Now, the BBC did correct the article, but the whole thing really makes you question the rush to judgment and how a narrative can get set in stone before all the facts are in.
Here's an even more complicated case, the tragic explosion at the Al-Ali hospital in Gaza. Now, intelligence from the US and several other Western experts suggested the cause was a misfired rocket from a Palestinian group,
But BBC Verify continued to report that the cause was contested. This case really shows just how incredibly difficult it is to establish a single, verifiable truth in the middle of a war zone, what people call the fog of war, where every side has a story to tell.
Okay, so things are messy, right? It's complex. So what do? We can't just throw our hands up in the air. We need a method. We need a toolkit. And that's what this next part is all about, giving you a practical framework you can use to analyze any document, which is a crucial skill for your exams and, honestly, for life.
First things first, let's get our definition straight. When we say critical thinking, we don't mean just being negative or cynical about everything. It's an active process. It means you take a step back and you analyze information objectively. You ask questions like, who made this? Why did they make it? What's the context? Is there a hidden bias? The whole point is to form your own well-reasoned judgment, not just to swallow someone else's.
So here it is, a 5-step method you can apply to any document you get in this course. Step 1, know what you're looking for. Step 2, pull out the main ideas. Step 3, and this is maybe the most important, evaluate your sources. Who are they? What's their angle? Step 4, cross-reference. See if what one source says matches up with another. And finally, Step 5, organize everything you found and build your own argument.
Let's try it out right now with the 2 documents we've been talking about. Okay, first, let's evaluate the source. The BBC document is an official paper for the UK Parliament. So its purpose? To defend itself and its funding. Its tone is formal, maybe a little defensive. Now the Unheard article. It's investigative journalism from a site known for challenging the mainstream. Its purpose is to critique. Its tone is challenging, investigative. And when we cross-reference, the BBC's claim to be the antidote is directly questioned by Unheard's specific examples. See? This is exactly the kind of breakdown you need to do for your bat.
And that brings us to our conclusion. We've looked at the problem, we've looked at a potential solution, and now we have a method for analysis. So what's the big takeaway here? I think it's about making a mental shift from being passive consumers of news to becoming active, critical citizens.
So to sum up, here are the key things I want you to walk away with. 1. Today's information world isn't black and white. It's complicated and polarized. 2. Organizations like the BBC are super important, but they're run by humans, and they can make mistakes. They are fallible. 3. This means the skill of analyzing sources, asking who wrote it, why they wrote it, is not just nice to have, it's absolutely essential. And finally, getting good at this method is your key to success in your exams. So let's come back one last time to our big guiding question. We've explored all the different angles. We've looked at the institutions and the skills we need. Now I think we're ready to put together a real answer.
And here it is. While institutions like the BBC give us incredibly useful resources, a place to start our research, they can't be the final word. Ultimately, the responsibility falls on us. We have to be the ones who actively apply these critical methods, who verify the verifiers, and who slowly but surely build our own informed understanding of the world.
I'll leave you with one last question to think about, one that connects to so many other parts of your program. As generative AI gets better and better at creating fake images, fake videos, fake everything, does our whole idea of truth need to change? Is truth a finished product that experts can package and deliver to us? Or is it something more like a continuous, messy, ongoing process of asking questions? A process that every single one of us needs to be a part of. Think about it.